Okay, so in this video, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of a portfolio review I did with one of my credit card consultation clients and show you how I was able to help him with his credit card setup. Now, he had been optimizing his credit card setup for about a decade or so at this point since he started his IT company. And you'll see that he really put a lot of thought into his credit card portfolio, both on the personal side and on the business side. But as we all do, he wanted to make his credit card setup even better. And his main question for me was to get advice and recommendations on how to optimize his credit card setup for travel with a family of 4, including his 2 daughters who are ages 3 and below. So I'm going to take you through his story, identify some of his pain points, and then explain how he worked through his setup to help him figure out how he could maximize his travel rewards. And to really understand what's going on, I think it's important to learn more about this specific client, who we're going to call Jack. Like I mentioned earlier, Jack is married with 2 kids and lives in Hawaii. He mentions that he mainly flies on Southwest Airlines, both inter-island as well as to the continental United States. He also favors Hilton hotels and states that he does 1 to 2 staycations at Hilton resorts in Hawaii with his whole family, but he also wants to go on aspirational trips with him and his wife, and he travels to business conferences every year that mainly happen in Las Vegas. He also says, and I think a lot of us fall into this trap too, that he's been so hyper-focused on optimizing for points that he's never stopped to think about how to use them. And he recently figured out that all those fancy redemptions that everyone talks about are typically for singles or just 2 people, and it's almost impossible to do that for a family of 4. And so with that introduction, let's get into his current credit card portfolio, which includes 10 credit cards. And these cards are the Bank of Hawaii Hawaiian Airlines card, the Amex Simply Cash card, the Amex Business Gold card, the Chase Sapphire Reserve, the Chase Ink Cash, the Chase Freedom Unlimited, the Verizon Visa, the Sam's Club card, the Capital One Venture X, and the American Express Hilton Honors Aspire card. And I'll also overlay the opening dates of each one of these cards so you can see what those are too, and feel free to pause the video here if you need more time to see what that looks like. So breaking it down, he has a total of 3 Amex credit cards, 1 personal, 2 business. Organized in a different way, he has 1 pay over time card and 2 Amex credit cards. He also has 3 Chase credit cards, 2 personal, 1 business, and his current Chase 524 status is 324. He has 1 Capital One card as well as 3 credit cards with other issuers. His total annual fees across all cards is just under $2,000 and has access to American Express membership rewards points, Chase Ultimate Rewards points, Capital One miles, and Hilton Honors points. And his oldest card is the Bank of Hawaii card, which has an annual fee of $99, and he reports that he has about 170,000 Hawaiian miles in his account. Of course, we all know that with the Alaska merger, things are going to change in about a year or 2 with this card, so we'll definitely have to keep this in mind as we move forward. He also reports that the Amex Simply Cash card was a card he got when he first started his business, but after getting the Amex Business Gold card, he now rarely uses the Simply Cash card. Just so we're all on the same page, the Amex Simply Cash card had no annual fee and was replaced by the Blue Business Cash card in the summer of 2019. This card earned 5% cash back on office supply stores and wireless phone services for up to $50,000 in combined spending, with the next category, which is the 3% cash back on a choice category and 1% cash back on all other purchases. And so those are the 2 cards that are specific to Jack that I thought needed just a little more clarification. But the other cards in his portfolio are much more well known, so now let's go over them to see how he uses each card. Okay, so in my mind, there are always going to be 3 categories for cards in your portfolio: your core credit card setup, your secondary credit card setup, and your bench credit card setup. Your core setups are the cards you use for your everyday spending. Your secondary setup are cards you use primarily for the benefits, and your bench setup are the cards that you're not really using but are keeping around for other reasons. Now, since Jack is a business owner and has a clear separation between his personal and business expenses, his case is unique in that we should create 2 core credit card setups, 1 for personal, 1 for business, and here's what that would look like. In his personal core credit card setup, his specialty cards are the Sam's Club card for 5% cash back at Sam's Club and for gas at Sam's Club, and the Verizon Visa card for 4% cash back on groceries and 4% cash back on gas as well. His main card is the Chase Sapphire Reserve that earns 3x points back on dining and 3x points back on travel, and his catch-all card is his Chase Freedom Unlimited card that earns 3x points back at drugstores and 1.5x points back on everything else. So you can see that he's running a hybrid setup with cashback cards for those 4 to 5% cashback categories, as well as those UR point earning cards from Chase for the remaining categories. As for spending, he reports spending around $10,000 per year on his Sam's Club card, $20,000 per year on his Chase Sapphire Reserve card, with about 50% of that on restaurants, and about $12,000 per year on his Chase Freedom Unlimited card. And this is some pretty decent spending that's going to generate a lot of UR points as well as a significant amount of cash back. But one of the cards that hasn't been mentioned yet is his Capital One Venture X card. As we all know, this card earns elevated multipliers if you purchase certain types of travel on Capital One Travel, but it also has this multiplier where you could earn 2x miles back on all other purchases, making it a great catch-all credit card both at home and while abroad. In Jack's situation, this card could potentially replace the Chase Freedom Unlimited card, but I wouldn't recommend doing this, at least for domestic purchases, for several reasons. The first is that as he has a family of 4 with 2 young kids, booking international first and business class travel is probably not going to be his focus right now. So while he could earn 2x miles back in the catch-all category, there's not really a solid plan on how to use those miles. Capital One has some good transfer partners, but even if he spends $12,000 on the card in a year, that's only 24,000 Capital One miles, which is not going to move the needle very much. And second, by adding this card to his core credit card setup, this will add an additional issuer to the cards he already has, making his setup more complex without much benefit. I think that this would be a great catch-all card to use abroad though, so it's good that he has it so he could use it for that purpose if it ever comes up. And even though the Chase Freedom Unlimited card earns 1.5x UR points back as compared to the Venture X's 2x miles back, he could transfer those UR points to the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Then he could take advantage of that 50% points redemption boost on the CSR when redeeming points through Chase Travel. So the value of those points from the Freedom Unlimited jump from 1.5x to 2.25x, making the CFU card a better earner by comparison. Now for his business core credit card setup, he has 2. The Amex Business Gold card and the Chase Ink Cash card. The Amex Business Gold card is his primary business card, earning 4x MR points back from electronic goods retailers and software and cloud system providers up to $150,000 per calendar year in spending, then 1x MR points back thereafter. Of course, there are other elevated choice categories on this card too, but this one is specific to Jack, and he runs about $100,000 through this card per year for his business clients, so he's definitely taking advantage of that multiplier. He also has the Chase Ink Cash card for 5x UR points back on the first $25,000 spent in combined purchases each account anniversary year at office supply stores and on internet, cable, and phone services. And I'd consider both these cards to be specialty cards, earning those 4 to 5x multipliers in specific categories. But for the other 2 types of cards in this setup, which are the main card and the catch-all card, he doesn't have any cards that fit, and this is an area of improvement. Now, when looking at his business core setup, the first card that came to my mind was to fill the gap for a catch-all credit card, and for him, he could choose either the Chase Ink Unlimited card or the Amex Blue Business Plus. I think either card could work, but personally, I'd favor the Blue Business Plus in this situation because the only Amex MR point earning card that he has right now is the Business Gold card. I'm always in favor of having the Blue Business Plus as an anchor card so that your MR points are safe if something were to happen to that Business Gold card, or if you decided that you didn't want to have it anymore. Now, I don't expect that to happen anytime soon because it's a very valuable business card to him right now, but you never know. Another benefit of getting the Blue Business Plus is that it would cover the catch-all category in his core business credit card setup for those expenses that don't fit in either of those other 2 cards. And although the Ink Unlimited may be a great card to consider, especially if it had an elevated welcome offer at the time of the application, he already has a Freedom Unlimited card. And so the Ink Unlimited wouldn't really add anything more to his setup once that welcome offer was completed. Now, if he wanted another Chase credit card, a better option to consider would be the Chase Ink Preferred card as a main card in his business core credit card setup. Again, it'd be important to figure out if this card would cover any business categories that wasn't covered by his other 2 cards. But if he goes to business conferences, this would be a great card to add to that setup for that 3x travel category if he was not staying in a Hilton hotel. So I hope you've been enjoying this credit card consultation so far, and if you're like Jack and want an in-depth analysis of your own setup, I can help you with that. There's so much information out there about credit cards and it can be overwhelming, but I can help you filter out the noise, save you time, and ultimately help you create your own best credit card setup with your individual needs in mind. I'll make sure your credit card setup is optimized for your spending, and at the end, you'll have a clear credit card strategy to follow and make your next move. Check out my website at thecreditfrog.com to see if my personalized review services are right for you. And if you decide to book with me, I look forward to meeting you and taking your credit card portfolio to the next level. And with all that being said, let's get back to the video. Okay, so that brings us to his secondary credit card setup. And for this, he has 2 cards. the Capital One Venture X, and the Amex Hilton Honors Aspire. Jack explained to me that his Venture X card is primarily for airport lounge access, and he also added his daughters to the card as authorized users to start building up their credit scores. He also finds value with Capital One card offers and also uses the card to book rental cars through Capital One Travel for that 10x multiplier. But the Amex Hilton Honors Aspire card is the most important benefits card that he has, in my opinion, since not only does Jack have the card, but his wife does as well, and so they both get 2 Hilton free night certificates every single year. He also says that he can use the $50 quarterly airline credit and can also use the $200 semi-annual Hilton resort credit on both cards, since he stays at Hilton resorts with his family within the islands about 1 or 2 times per year. Now, like a lot of you out there, he has a game plan for his Hilton cards, and he wants to eventually get 3 Hilton Honors Aspire cards, not only for himself, but also for his wife too. The way he sees it, Hilton is the most family-friendly hotel program, and he can use the Hilton resort and flight credits organically, as well as the potentially 6 Hilton free night certificates either for a family staycation or for aspirational travel for him and his wife. He asked me if he should branch out to other hotel programs, and I told him that Hilton suits him very well and that this should be his focus. By narrowing down to one hotel program, he can take full advantage of his Hilton Diamond Elite status and use those very valuable Hilton Aspire credits and benefits. And based on his current credit card setup right now, even if he was approved for a Blue Business Plus, he'd still have 2 Amex slots left over for those Aspire cards, provided that his maximum credit card limit with Amex was 5. Now, his plan was to do an inverted Hilton credit card ladder, with him and his wife getting the Hilton Surpass card in 2026 and then the Hilton Honors card in 2027, with plans to product change both cards to the Aspire after that mandatory 12-month period after card opening. And since his wife is on board with this strategy too, they can both refer each other along the way, making this Hilton ladder strategy very lucrative when it comes to Hilton Honors points. Another question that he had was that since he flies primarily Southwest, would going for the Southwest Companion Pass be feasible, and should he and his wife go for that too? He explained that his family does a lot of inter-island travel since they have family on the other island, so he thought that the Southwest Companion Pass would be great for them, both for him and his wife, and I thought this was a great idea, even though his kids are very young, because they can still take advantage of this benefit as frequent travelers. Now, I also wanted to mention the remaining 2 cards in his portfolio, which are his Hawaiian Airlines card and his Amex Simply Cash card. Both cards aren't used anymore, and so they fall into his bench credit card setup. When it comes to the Bank of Hawaii card, I agree that he should keep this card open as it's his oldest card. It's up to him whether he wants to convert those Hawaiian miles to Alaska miles. I'd say that 170,000 Alaska miles could definitely go a long way, especially for business class on an international flight to Asia from Hawaii on One World Alliance partner flights. And when it comes to the Amex Simply Cash card, this card is probably worth canceling at this point. Not only would it reduce his setup by a card, but it would also free up an additional Amex credit card slot for another Amex card should he want one in the future for an elevated offer or otherwise. So that's his credit card portfolio, but where does that leave him in terms of flexible point currencies? Well, as a reminder, Jack earns Amex MR points, Chase UR points, and Capital One miles. For his Amex MR points, if he's not going to be going on any first or international business trips soon, transferring these points out to Hilton is an interesting idea, especially if he can do so during a transfer bonus period. This can get him more Hilton points to support his goal of staying at Hilton resorts, both in Hawaii as well as when he travels back to the continental United States. His Chase UR points can be redeemed through Chase Travel using the Chase Sapphire Reserve, and his use case is probably best with Southwest flights, which would net him a flat 1.5 cent per point redemption value and would be a great way to get a good return when booking travel for him and his family. Now, with Capital One, like I said earlier, this will be a tricky one since the Venture X is the only card that earns this currency in his portfolio. Personally, I just keep this card as a benefits card for the lounges and use it as a catch-all card when traveling. The miles he earns could be combined with other transfer partner programs shared with Amex or Chase as sort of a top-up option for first or business class flights when he decides to go on that next big vacation. And so those were my recommendations for Jack on how he could optimize his credit card setup for travel for his family of 4. His setup didn't really need any major changes because it was very well thought out, but there were definitely some areas and points of discussion to improve his setup and make it more efficient and valuable. Specifically, my recommendations were for him to focus on just the Chase and American Express ecosystems for simplicity, to add the Blue Business Plus and cancel the Amex Simply Cash card, and to go all in on the Hilton Honors Rewards program with an ultimate goal of getting 6 Hilton Aspire cards in the future. And with setups as complex as this one, Organizing your credit card setup is super important, and to see how I do this using my own credit card portfolio as an example, check out this video next.